Okay, get ready for the stylings of Miss Howard. Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Howard. I'm the branch chief for training at Air Force A1DLT. First, I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. I want to thank Chief Perkins for insisting I be here and give this briefing. A little bit of history, in case you guys are trying to wonder why is that civilian up there talking stuff about training? Hey, I'm a 3F2 by trade, all civilian though. My career has been in force development. I started out at Kadena Air Base as a guidance counselor, went all the way up to the ESO, went to Hickam at MAGCOM, Dakota, when we changed to FSD, got to FSD, Dakota, then went to AFTW to be the force development branch chief for that MAGCOM. And under that, we had formal training, OJT, fall ag, civilian training. So I am force development by nature. I love it. I love training. I started out actually at Okinawa as the academic advisor for UMC. Loved it. Went to college and thought I'd become a psychiatrist, right? So I figured you had to go to medical school. I took some biology class and that didn't work. So, so I was like, oh, wait, maybe I want to be a psychologist. Oh, wait, maybe I want to be a counselor. So in all actuality, honestly, I'm living my dream. I love it. Sometimes I've been accused of kidnapping young airmen to give them guidance counseling on their CPAF, which I have no business doing. So that's my background. So I started this job 3 years ago in April, and in that branch, so let me say this. I am the branch chief, but there's two sides of us in that training. There's the chief of OJT, the chief of ancillary training. I would like to say Chief Perkins and I work together, but we never see each other. So I told her when I saw her this week, I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you since December. And I tell you, our cubicles are right next to each other. So very, very little what she does do I get involved with. A lot of sometimes what I do, she gets involved with. Reason being, because she is a 3F2 career coach. So everything I do, I have to keep you guys in mind. Everything I do, or I get yelled at really, really bad. You did what? You agreed to what? Do you know what our UTMs are going through? I said, I do. I fought that fight. Here's where we are. So anyway, what I thought I would do today is I would give you a full DOD to Air Force level to expeditionary training view of how we come to Air Force ancillary training. Now, question. Do I own all training? Yes. No, I do not. I do not own OJT. I do not own formal training. I do not own expeditionary training. I do not own civilian training. But all of those trainings have an impact on Air Force ancillary training. So I sit on different councils. Yesterday we were in a meeting, we were talking about the AFI, something came up about expeditionary training or UPN. So I have the capability in 2 more months, I believe, when I go to the Expeditionary Readiness Council meeting and bring that up. And say, hey, you guys need to, whatever Chief Perkins comes up with what we need to talk about, and say, hey, you guys need to figure this out. You need to put in your AFI. Your AFI is too generic, and we need some clarification. So we're going to talk about ancillary training. We're going to start with the OSD Common Military Training Working Group. How many individuals ever heard of the Common Military Training? DOE. You should, everyone should. That's where all of our common military training stems from. Does that mean every ancillary training that we take is in that? No, it doesn't. Okay, then we're going to discuss the Air Force Learning Committee. Actually, where all that training comes from, who reviews it, how we review it, and it's actually going to change. Then we're going to talk about the ancillary training message, which really isn't going to be a message anymore. I have actually been working on this message for like a year now. And then we'll get more into that, but it's not going to be a message anymore, and I kind of thought about that. Then we'll talk about expeditionary training. Then we'll have questions, but I know there's not going to be any questions. Some are going to be like so clear, right? Okay, next slide, please. I told him I couldn't hold the mic and click slide. I can't do it. I can't multitask. So Department of Defense Instruction 132231 defines all the common military training amongst the services. So a lot of the working groups that I sit on are joint services at the DoD level. When we create training for branded training, which we'll talk about a little, TCCC, everyone heard of that change that's coming? We sit on a DoD level working group to create that training. So December 2016, Common Military Working Group was chartered. And what we were chartered to do is to have each of those common military training components or course owners at the DoD level come to the table and justify their training. They had to justify why we did it the way we did it, how we executed it, when did we execute it, and guess what? Out of that, we got a lot of changes. We got CTIP changed. We got records management change. So there were quite a few changes. Next slide. So these are the common military training. Now, anti-terrorism, counterintelligence awareness, those are all like the force protection. Some people look at this and like, what's force protection? And I'm like, force protection is one course, but you have several courses embedded in it. Privacy Act records, so each one of these had to come to the This took about a year. And then as required, code of contact, MEO, code of conduct, MEO, sexual harassment. Now, this is all important. The reason I want you to see this is because in 2018, Department of Defense came out with a letter and said, hey, each component, you will give all the services a baseline of training. So here's the baseline. I'm going to use CTIP because that's the easiest one. So CTIP, as you know, was annual. We did it on AFLC, JKO, wherever you took it. And there was no reasoning behind it. So when you sat down with these components, you realized they were interpreting things how they thought it should be interpreted. So now, whenever there is a new training introduced, it has to come to the Common Military Training Working Group, which makes my job much, much easier. Okay? So TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care, which is taking the place of SABC around 2020, sometime like that, so don't get scared. The course is still being developed. I don't know how many of y'all heard about this, but when this first came out from DHA, Department of Health Agency, Defense Health Agency, it was 16 hours long. 16, based on nothing. It was based on a civilian TCCC course, and it was 16 hours, and the policy that they were pushing down to the services that you will take it, everyone in the Air Force will take it, and civilians that deploy, which makes sense. And then you will take a refresher course every 3 years. The services were like, yeah, no. And so they had to come to the table, and now a new course is being built through those subject matter experts. So I sit on the working group along with SG and my other service components. But we'll get into that a little later. But that's basically how we get that ancillary training pushed down. Now, the Air Force has its own training also that they can levy on the force. This is where we start. So I thought I would just kind of give you that big picture, because I think a lot of people think that Miss Nanette Howard controls all the ancillary training. I tell you when to take it, how to take it, I develop it, and I make you do it for 4 hours. Not true. Okay, next slide. Any questions on that? So that's our 1 March memo that came down from Secretary of Defense and some of the changes. The biggest change I can tell you about this, besides CTIP, is any common military training will have a baseline for the services. CTIP now is just your sessions only for civilians and military. If our Secretary of Air Force Wilson decided, I'm going to do it twice a year, I just don't want to do a session, she can change that. But the thing is, there's a baseline. And let me tell you why that baseline is going to work. You will have Secretary Wilson sitting at the table. You can have the Navy Secretary sitting at the table. And somebody will say, you know, we can CTIP twice a year, it takes an hour long, we're really, and that'll come back and, hey, why don't they do their training like that? What? So this helps alleviate that. So now when all the services sit at the table, and Guys, guess what? They discuss these things sometimes. We can all be on the same baseline and say, hey, well, Navy likes to do such and such 5 times a year because of their mission, because of where they are. But what's important is we have a baseline now, and no service looks like it's doing any more than the other service. Okay? Next slide. Okay, Air Force Learning Committee. How many of you guys heard of AFLC? Okay. So the AFLC meets once a year, and that's going to change, and I'll get into that later. So we're the gatekeeper. It's in AFI 362651. That's always fun. So basically what the AFLC is you will have a new component course owner come to the table. They can come to the table with a new course. They can come to the table with changes to an existing course. But before we allow that change, they need to meet the AFLC. They have to come to the table and justify it. Now, 2 years ago, this was rough. I would contact people and say, hey, you gotta come justify. Who are you? Why? What do you mean? Who are you? I'm like, well, I'm the net, but 362201, which it was at the time, says that you need to do thus, and so. I can tell you, because of you all, I know I don't get that anymore. And I think it's because we formed an alliance that says, hey, wait a minute, you can't levy that on us, you can't levy, and you call me up or you call Chief Perkins up and we get it solved. So honestly, thank you for that. I'm gonna tell you what's funny. I have these once-a-month meetings with our director of A1D, of Course Development. He's the SES, Mr. Fry. So I'm sitting there week before last, going through things with him. And he's like, oh, you did a training message? I'm telling him, I kind of did a training message. He's like, can I get it? I was like, no, you can't. You know why? Because I need all the 302s to look at it and tell me if it's meeting the intent. Guys, it's very simplistic. I would like to say it's rocket science. It is not. Okay? And I told him, nope, I need the 302s to look at it, say, hey, is this going to meet our intent? Should I put it on the SharePoint drive? It's just an Excel file, and it goes over our training. So that's the AFLC. We review, adjudicate ancillary training, ensure proper delivery of institutional competency. Now, this is big for the AFLC, the institutional competency. How many of you all know any training, any education needs to be the Air Force institutional competencies? Who's ever heard of the institutional competencies? Wow. Okay. So the force development page on my purse, whether you go to enlisted, civilian, whatever, you should find the institutional competencies, leadership, influencing others, things like that. That's what most of our training is based upon. The AFLC got away from that. The AFLC was developed, I believe, in 2008, and it got away from our training demonstrating our beliefs and what our competencies should be. Next slide. If I'm missing something, you guys tell me. So here's the baseline for coming to A1DLT with new training or changes. What's the driver requirement? Well, OPM told us to do it. Office Personnel Manual. Okay. DOD told us to do it. Secretary of the Air Force told us to do it. Does that mean we're really going to do it? It doesn't. It means that as a committee, we're going to sit down. Again, we're going to have that course owner or proponent come to the table, tell us why we should be doing it. We're together, we're going to interpret the guidance, and then we're going to set policy. The duration of the training, so I got to tell you the story, it's hilarious. So T-CCC, my Navy counterpart, I love him. He walks into a meeting and he goes, it's going to be 2 hours. It's going to be 4 hours, right? And in the Air Force, I have to take into consideration what my leadership guidance is. But for the Air Force, we don't train to time, we train to competency. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Navy, I love them. We work awesome together. But my job is not to go in and say, we're only going to do 1 minute. No, my job is to understand what competency are we trying to fulfill, what's the best way to do this, and then move on. Our learning objectives being met. Do you know most of the common military training did not have learning objectives? we had to have the components. That was one of the things they had to do, come up with learning objectives. What do you want us to learn? Navy's learning one thing, Marine Corps is learning another, Army's learning another. So now we have learning objectives. Mission impact, we used to do, oh my gosh. So in 2 years, we've already done like 3, 4 evaluations of TFAC. So the annual doesn't even exist anymore because we've been doing it like every year, every 6 or 9 months, you've seen something come out in phases. And then we do, trust me, bringing on advisors, which are our MATRON, AU, our PME people, BMT, they sit on the AFLC also, but some of that's gonna change. Next slide. Okay, so this is gonna change also. But the last AFLC, Air Force Learning Committee that we had was 26 September. And these are the entities that sit at that table, or either they call them. And if we need a vote, we vote on, we never really need a vote, we vote on whether this training should go forward, whether we should consider it, or does that proponent or course owner need to go back and give us more information. That's how it looks now. I tell you, it's gonna change a little bit. You're gonna have A1, D, SAP, MR, A3, all the advisors, all the delegates. Now, how many of you MAGCOM 3F2s have seen this and attended, whether it was in person or via telephone? Okay, so that's unfortunate, but you can attend. I always invite Chief Perkins, but I'm getting the support. Because, oh my God, the room is so small sometimes that depending on if she can't sing. But I just, yeah, okay. So, next slide. Here's the awesome. So when I say I can't do this without you guys, I'm serious. So I'm gonna take a second to tell you, if I know anything about training, ancillary training, it's due to Senior Master Sergeant Woodard, who was at AFDW. She's at Global Strike. You here? Dawn, I love her. Master Sergeant Edwards, who was at AFDW, who actually didn't work for me, but I still called on for her for everything. So here's the funny thing. When I got here, somebody was like, you know you gotta do the annual training message. I was like, what annual training message? They were like, it comes out every year. I called Dawn, I'm like, Sergeant Woodard, what training message are they talking about? She's like, Ms. Howard, I've always got the training message. I just didn't bother you with it because we took care of it. Oh, okay. But I've been in this 20 years. I've never seen a training message. Now, what's funny is when I looked at the message, it really didn't list all the ancillary training for that year. It just kind of listed, hey, this is the new training the AFLC decided on, this is what you'll incorporate, and that was it. So there is no list of ancillary training. I know that they say you can go ALS or ECA, but that's not updated like it should be, and no one's fault, just due to management. So here's the great thing. How many of you guys remember in January last year, I sent out an email, or the chief sent out an email, and I said, hey, what training do you think you're doing above and beyond this TFAC? And this is what, some of this on here is what you guys came back with. So I want you to know what we did with that. We took it to the AFLC, we called those proponents, we said, you gotta come to the AFLC and justify this. So the ones that we had, voting assistance, resiliency, safety risk management, environmental management. How many of you guys remember that? So here's what we did with that. The one that came through, voting assistance. You will have to do voting assistance. So there's nothing really to it. And then it's what we call selected force training. We'll talk about that. It's just for active duty military. But they send you out booklets, things like that. So we will add that to our portfolio. Resiliency. Who brought up resiliency? What is that called? Well, resiliency is on hold. You guys know like those 4 pillars and So you no longer do that. That was never looked at as ancillary training. So what we also do is we go back and say, wait, we're doing this training, but why? And where did it come from? And who allowed that policy? Resiliency actually is being reworked. Does anybody still do resiliency, the 4 pillars? Wow, okay. And that is up to your commander. That is up to your commander. Safety, risk management, and environmental management. They have to go back to the table. They have to go back to AU, Air University, because these are one-time trainings, basically. So what they were saying is, it's through a session. Well, no one could validate if it truly was being done through a session. So that's what's happening now. We have another AFLC, 16 April. They will have to come back to the table with their update. So in a nutshell, that's how we are now, that's how we review our training and things like that. Any questions with that? Not yet? I was just gonna ignore you, ma'am, but okay, I see you. No. Yes, ma'am. Oh, she needs a mic. Do I have the mic? You have the mic? I could run over. Okay.
The environmental management, I just had something come down last minute. Matter of fact, everybody's required to do it. Our group commander said on January 2nd. But it's called Teach. And it is so confusing. I don't know how to, everybody, depending on their position, does a different little video, whatever. I thought it was way easier to just do the APLS course for environmental.
Okay, so I can tell you I don't know what Teach is. The course component for that, never brought up Teach. That could be a program where your environmental POCs at your base decided because of some things going on at your particular environment that you all needed that additional training and they decided to do it through that, and that's a commander's choice. Now, if you believe some training's on hand, please just push it up to us. Push it up to us. And then I'll send it to Mr. Teddy James and say, hey, what is it? And 9 times out of 10, he'll come back and say, hey, commander wants you to do it. So again, some training is based upon your environment, your base, and what your commander needed. So I just wanted you to know that this is what was done with those inquiries that you gave me. And also at the time, medical readiness came to the table. Next slide, please. Okay, ancillary training. This is our wonderful list. Let's go over it. You know, I found a mistake right here. Anyway, this training is face-to-face. Okay? All this training can be done face-to-face with the exception of Cyber Awareness Challenge, which is about to change. Coming down from the DoD component. We haven't gotten the course yet. How many people doing face-to-face training? Awesome. Okay, great. Do we know where that flexibility came from? Secretary of the Air Force. About a year ago, I had to sit down with staff and mom and consider it. Hey, General Goldstein, Secretary of Air Force wants a new way of doing training. Now, what we know as 302 is you can always do face-to-face training. My second day on the job, second day I was in the room with CE General 2-Star. He talked to me about ancillary training, why can't we do it a different way? And I was like, sir, you know you can do it face-to-face if you want. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, I don't know if you agree, that's 2 days at the time, but I didn't write them out. But I understand why that was not an option at first. Because what did that mean? The UTM has to hand jam all of that. But again, it's a choice. Those flexibilities come down from revitalizing the squadron, giving the commander more leeway. Now, a huge thing, and we'll get to this in a minute, that Chief Perkins discussed was about 2 years ago when she first, this is funny, you put her out there. When she first got there, she's like, they're out there doing training any kind of way they want. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, we all up in the uproar, like, what? Like, yeah, you can do training if you were in 5 years, you only gotta do cyber awareness once. If you was in 20 years, you only gotta do SAPR once or suicide. So we was like, so who's gonna track that? Who's doing all that? So anyway, we go back and forth with them. Chief Layman, it needs to stop. We need to stop it. It shouldn't go on. And I'm like, well, there's a process. There's a process. So first, let's get with the IG. Let's get with the IG and the JAG. Because we simply set the policy. IG enforces it. JAG enforces it. You know what they both came back with? Well, we don't want to take away the flexibility of the commander. So hard lesson we learned was, I don't know if there's any right or wrong anymore. The other guy was assisting a proponent, and she said, well, I'm going to do it this way. And I was like, no, that's incorrect. That's totally incorrect. Why are you doing it that way? I'm telling you guys, the next day I thought about it, I called her and I apologized. I said, you know what, ma'am? I was out of order. You know what? If that's how you feel you want to do it, and you feel as though it's aligned with the policy, and this was in the civilian training group, I was like, great, go for it. Now, in no way, shape, or form, you guys know guidance, you know the policy. Luckily, those letters are gone, right? Those letters are gone. Nobody's coming across those anymore because we've now built those flexibilities. And out of that, now we have our ancillary training. We only have really 3 TFAT, total force annual training. Force protection, SAPR, suicide, which are embedded in one course, or now, the way SAPR's doing it, is a la carte. Are you guys familiar with that? You can, this is so funny, you can do like a 5-hour SAPR, you can do a 4-hour SAPR, you can do a 2-hour suicide, you can do a 1-hour suicide. Guess which one I'm picking? Right, taking the least amount of time, but again, their thought process, because they come to that athlete every year also and breathe. Because I need to understand what they're going to be doing the next year. Because how many of us get that training for SAPR and we are utterly confused when it comes out? So anyway, and cyber awareness, 3. That's it. How many of you guys remember we used to have at least 16 or 17? A long time ago. No Fear Act got changed with that April 2016 memo. How many of you are familiar with that? It was a little confusing, but we got through it, right? And religious freedom. Now, all these had to come to the table also to justify their training about 2-3 years ago. Religious freedom, like, well, Secretary of the Air Force at the time wanted it every year, and every 3 years now. And we should. Oh my gosh, DTS policy, USERA, how many of you all know what USERA is? All right, I made a statement yesterday in one of the briefings. It's important that you understand some aspects of civilian education and training. I know some of you feel like, well, I don't really deal with civilians a lot, but you will one day, and you will assist them. USERA is kind of that training. If you are in the Guard Reserve and you supervise one of those individuals who is a civilian when they work for you, you need to know the laws of USERA. Basically, you can't fire them when they go on active duty. So those are one of those things as a supervisor of a civilian that you might be one day or you might get out, you need to know that. But that's what we call selected. So over here, you'll see selected, event-driven, one-time training. Those are all different categories of ancillary training. I threw absentee voting on there. Substance abuse is selected, it's only for commanders, first shirts, things like that. EO newcomers, human relations, that's when you go to a different base. Combating trafficking in persons, one time via sessions. Equal opportunity first duty station, one time, DTS basic and basic 1 and 2, and cyber awareness training. Now, Did we get rid of records management and offset? No, we did not. No memo that came out ever got rid of any training. It was decided by that course owner at the Air Force level that it was sufficiently talked about in other trainings. So that's the misnomer. When people got rid of that in 2016, no, we did not. Now, was every course owner happy with all this? No. But look at where it's gotten us now. Now, here's the question. Did anybody see any issues with that? Is it easy to follow? Do we need to add to it? Did I miss anything? So I can move forward with that? Yes, sir. You guys are sitting there like, that can't be all she does if it's just that. Right? Like she needs some work. Right?
I'm not sure if this is gonna come up or not, Sergeant Reeves. I see this list, there used to be a list that was sent out, previous years, and I don't know if there's a way to be able to have it consolidated.
What list would that be? I've never, no, I'm not being condescending or anything. I would like the list, because I've never seen a list, not in any of the ancillary training messages. Was there ever a list that defined that? You could always go on ADLS and look at TFAT, and sometimes that was right, sometimes it was wrong.
As far as the annual selected one time, I understand that's on ADLS or wherever you take the training. I'm talking about a list that says, hey, look, these are the trainings that are offered in the Air Force. These are which ones we need to follow, which ones we don't. So there used to be a yearly message back in the day, and it's not that far removed from back in the day, that kind of listed out everything that we should be, what we know, what our expectations are to track and follow this, that, and the other.
In terms of what, functional training, additional duty training, or ancillary training?
All the above.
Okay, so in the beginning of this briefing, we talked about, and that's a fair statement and question. I don't remember a list that encompassed all of that training. And if you send it to me, I would love it. But here's the thing, those are separate entities. Remember I talked about they impact ancillary training, but A1DLT has no governance over functional training. That's functional training. Has nothing to do with ancillary training. You have additional duty training. And when I don't mean being an additional duty unit training, I'm talking about you, the records person, you're the offset person, you're the go get the candy and the chips person, and it's got some training with it, right? That's what we call additional type duty training. That is not ancillary training. I get that question all the time. But fortunately, sir, just so you know, that's the same question my SDS had a couple of weeks ago. So now, I have to come up with some way of defining that and demonstrating that without, as my SDS, Mr. Pratt said, you don't give them the Heisman, Ms. Howard. I'm like, sir, I did not give them the Heisman. Why do you tell me that? I think he thinks I go on these high-level meetings. I'm like, no, we're not going to do it. I'm like, I don't do that. So anyway, so I will be incorporating into this briefing how those trainings all come together, but how they're separate, without it looking like we're giving it the Heisman when we have nothing to do with it. We don't make that policy, but what we do have, myself and Chief Perkins, is we have that influence when we sit on these different types of working groups to say, hey, maybe not, here's the So that, along with some wording, is going to go on to our SharePoint. Let me say this. Let you just be my age. Let me say this. And Chief Perkins, alluded to it. Please don't try to balance your leadership when they say we're going to do training in such and such a way. Don't do that. I can't do that. Don't you take that burden on. Report it to your MAVCOM, and they'll talk to us about it. I want you to let us know. No, if it just doesn't make sense, like some of the stuff I talked about, you need to let us know. We need to know what's going out there. But again, you've got to understand where they're coming from. Second, go get IG's take on it. go get the JAGS table. And you know what they might say? Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Then stop. Leave it right there. Annotate it, get in the email, let us know, send it up to us, we'll annotate it, stick it in the box, and there you go. And then we'll reach for it one day when something happens. That's, oh my gosh, that's all you have to do. I get so many calls, they're better now. I'm just telling you, doing such and such. You talking, Jackie? Talking to IG? Because our Air Force IG, you know, they told us, well, we're not going to say we're going to write people up for things. You know what I did? In the wording portion of that message, I put his name and his phone number and his email. And I will check on that every year and update it. So you go to your IG, when your IG can't make a decision, you go to the official IG and they'll tell you what to do. You'll save the email and you'll move on with your happy day. Because I think you got enough to keep you busy. Okay, next slide. Okay, so way ahead, guys. I don't know if you guys have heard of the new Force Development Commander concept at ATC. How many of you guys heard of that? Okay, so about 2 years ago, what was that body that meet? What's in my mind? No, the big one. Where are all the airports? Corona. Okay, Corona. That's right, okay. So Corona, I knew it was important. Corona met about 2 years ago and decided, hey, the Force Development Directorate, which is what we belong to, A1D, led by SDS, needs help executing. That was a nice way of saying it, because I'm on Facebook, right? Or is this being recorded? Okay, anyway. So we decided that we needed assistance executing force development in a really Air Force enterprise way. So the good thing about that is that we no longer execute the policy. A1D. What we get to do is focus on the policy. I get to go to all the meetings, write all the stuff down, bring it back, and say, hey, execute it. So that's what's happening with the Air Force Learning Committee now. ATC A3K will be executing it from here on out. So what they've done is they've built a charter, which needed to be done. They built a CONOP that needed to be done. But it will also encompass those institutional competencies being reviewed every year. They're building new ones. So probably in a year, we'll have new Air Force institutional competencies. So the reason I want to mention that is because when we went back, I don't want you to go back, but the other slide, I showed you who sat on the aspect committee, and that's going to change, as I mentioned. So it's going to be a little smaller. But we sit on it. Our A1D sits on it. I attend. Everyone at A1D can attend the aspect, right, Chief? Right. And so that's going to occur twice a year. Out of this came something called the Force Development Council, where you have 2 letters, sit at a table, and all these things are discussed. Ancillary training, institutional competencies, the money we need for new training, things like that. And they decide whether they're going to push it the Air Force, getting voted on. But it's a way of putting in front of our Air Force leadership what we do in training, along with some other things in education. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, next one. All right, I'm not going to give an expeditionary readiness. What do you think? Okay, but A1D sits on the Expeditionary Readiness Council. And twice a year, what we do, A1B, I represent A1B, we vote on what training is going where. This is the latest briefing that they have. A lot of you know places like CENTCOM kind of changed their expeditionary training. A couple of years ago, we went with it. We made changes too. But again, even in this world, we're building baselines. We're not saying, oh, if you go, because people get deployed to Florida. When I found that out, I was like, where can I get that? Where can I get that? But people were getting deployed to Florida and taking sitcom expeditionary training. Like that made no sense. You would think you thought about that, but we didn't. So anyway, about 2 years ago in expeditionary world they did. So now we created baselines. So now on that, the expeditionary readiness website, where you look at where all your training is for, the different, zones, you can see what you need. Now, the reason I sit on this and the reason they sit on my aspect is because the two can merge together sometimes. Just like that UDN, things like that. So what I try to do is I try to ensure that any training they want to get rid of on the expeditionary side of the house, they don't just throw on the ancillary side of the house. And we work really, really well together. So a lot of what I do is partnerships, it's liaisoning, things like that. Next page. Next slide. Okay, so of course you guys know you have VAR sections, you have BDR, and how many of you realize this has changed somewhere? And this should be on the new website. We just changed it. Gosh, nope, so many changes haven't gotten. I was here 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we made changes. I don't think they've gotten approved yet by now. But a lot didn't change. Next slide. ADR, next slide. So I just wanted you to know that I work with the IRC, Expeditionary Readiness Council, in reference to that. So if you guys have some issues with that, you have some questions sometimes, you do have your A3 work set, but if you need me to work some things at a higher level, I can do that for you. So I just want to give you an example because you guys are probably like, it's going to take 5 minutes. Because Howard doesn't do a thing because there's only that little bit of ancillary training, right? A big part of what A1B does, we liaison courses, how they're going to get built. I liaison and interpret for the course owner exactly what that policy is saying or the way we need that policy to be written so that we're not burdening them. It's huge. I can go from Stafford to environmental, to T-C-C, to civilian training, to sessions, all in one day, and have to know some of those guidelines every day. So if there's new training that comes out and you're not sure about it, push it up. But my goal today was to demonstrate and let me know if you felt it was worthwhile, the big picture. You know where it's coming from. And I think it helps you to speak to what your leadership needs sometimes a little bit better. When they say we want to do this, your answer should always be, you know what, sir? Commanders have every right to execute more training if they want to. You know, and then come to us. So how many people thought that was worthwhile? Should I keep going? Okay, should I kind of show how those different trainings impact each other, sir? The functional, okay. Yes, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Sorry, PR. So I wanted to, for myself, clarify, if we could go back to the slide that has the ancillary training. So maybe 4 slides back.
My magnificent slot.
Yeah.
So
So I'm old school, and every time I hear the term ancillary training, I think of everything is in ABLS, and I think that's my problem. So what I wanted to clarify is this slide right here, all that there is for ancillary training that is mandatory. And then is everything else functional training or expeditionary training? Okay, now that is clear now. But before, if I heard ancillary training, I would think everything in ADLS is ancillary training.
yeah, and it's defined that way in AFI. I'm sorry, it's defined that way in the AFI, what ancillary training is, and it gives you the different areas, selected, on time, things like that. But you're correct. And my next job or thing I need to do is come up with a way, like I said, of defining that without our receivers thinking we have nothing to do with that. But yeah, we do take that into consideration. So I have to find a better way of doing it. Man, you said you weren't going to answer no questions. We talked about this at breakfast.
Yeah, Chair, I know, that's our here, Tommy Air Force Base. The main issue that we have coming from the field is in relation to this list and the commanders being able to deliver this information offline. And so the question that I get is, well, where's the slide deck? So I've had commanders call me and say, hey, I want to deliver religious freedom on one slide, and that's how I want it. And so I have my training managers who are scrambling, attempting to build slide decks for offline completion for our commanders, where the information might not surely contain everything that's in the intent of the CBT. So my question or recommendation would be, is it possible to have a standardized set of offline course completion slides that are updated? Because I know there's some on the reserve side that's not, they're like 15 years old, but something that's more updated, so that we have a tool to give our commanders that want to do this option offline.
So you actually do.
Thank you.
ADLS has the option to download those slides online. I will get with ADLS, A5 TV. Those main ones, everything that's on ADLS, because all these aren't on ADLS, remember that, are on ADLS and can be downloaded. I made sure of that. So I will go back, ma'am, and I will ensure that every one of those that always sat on ADLS, you can how many people know you can download those offline and they've done it? Yes, ma'am. Say that again, ma'am. Yeah, we ensure that can happen. Now, USERA, you go to your civilian training office. Absentee voting, that's fine. Substance abuse, you go to SG. Go to your POCs and tell them, give you the slides. Don't have your training managers making up this slide deck. If it's just to fit that slide into your presentation. Okay, so go to your, and then the EO first duty station, newcomers, that's for your EO office to do. They do that doing newcomers, things like that. But go to your POC. Don't take it on yourself to do that. Yes, who's next?
Hi, ma'am.
Yes,
Sergeant Souza, Varsity Air Force Base. So I have actually a question in regards to expeditionary readiness training. And now I know that you don't manage this particular.
But I'll have you shooting, I'll have you going underground, I have you doing everything. But
So sometimes I think that would be better. But my question is, so the 4 September 18 URT checklist that was published on ADF.
the what? I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
The 4 September 2018 ERT checklist that was posted on AEF online, because, you know, we would kind of work closely with our UDNs to help them get their stuff done. And so I think there's some confusion. So it says here, AFI YR will initially complete all training and then maintain currency every 3 years, except for CBER, which will be done every 18 months. And then it additionally says that any other, and this is the BDR portion, so there's no longer BAR.
Right.
And then it says that anyone other than YR will do it, will complete BDR, general skills training when tasked to deploy, if not done in the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So my question was it intended to be just in time, or is it intended to be every 3 years? Because our commanders are treating it as if no, it's just in time.
So here's the thing, I would like to answer your question, cannot. But what I can tell you is that was a huge discussion in our last meeting. And what we decided and to validate it and define it better is not for me to put out there yet. But email me that question and I'll get my A3 folks and we will get that question. Because it's a question that was discussed. Okay, who's next?
Sergeant Sands, Cannon Air Force Base.
I'm sorry, ma'am, say that again, I'm sorry.
I'm Sergeant Sands from Cannon Air Force Base. So I have a question in regards to the training also. We teach all the offline ones in MTS as a one-time. Force protection, we were told we can't because we are not level 2 trained to force protection. So despite being able to have the slides and teach that one, we were told we're not allowed to.
Who told you that? The course owner?
Force protection.
Okay, then that's their decision. But this training right here,
Anti-terrorism, they said that portion of it.
anti-terrorism level 1 can be taught within this force protection. So that's a decision that they're making. And I can get with the Air Force level anti-terrorism person if you send me the email and validate that.
Okay, they said it's in their AFI, so they said we're not allowed to teach it. We would have to go like TUI to go get training to be that.
For anti-terrorism level 1.
No, that's what it's being taught at, but the person who's teaching it has to be a level 2. That's what they told us.
Okay, so force protection has been on ADLS for years with that incorporated in it. Annually, what happens is each course proponent comes to the table, tell us if there's any changes, Any AFI changes, any policy changes. I can tell you, we just did this a year ago, there were no changes. So please, if you get a chance, send your functional or myself that information. We'll go to the component. If we need to make changes, we'll make changes. But when things like that, yes, ma'am. Oh, come see, Chief Mojica. So that's off my plate. Who's that?
Hi, Matt, Sergeant Paris also. First, I want to thank you for advocating for us in these meetings. That's awesome. We really needed a voice out there and to help us with this training. But I also wanted to make a comment, not so much a question, because this has come up recently with one of my other UTMs came and asked me about it. Their commander is having a lot of suicides. Her commander wanted to talk to her about training and how they can help that. As 3F2s, we are the training experts, we're the subject matter experts, right? So we're here to advocate for the commander. So versus fighting with my commander saying, hey, oh, we're not gonna do that training 3 times a year. Talk to them, have a conversation. You have to communicate with your command. And you have to let them know, like, well, what's the intent, sir? What are you trying to get, sir, man? What are you trying to get to? And then we advise them, okay? So we're that voice. We're that advocate for both the squadron and the commander so that we can get the mission done and get the training done that we need and have it done smartly. They're a commander. They have so much on their plate. We're the ones speaking for the training community. So if you feel that they're doing something that's out of line or is too much or is too extra, take the time to communicate with your commander and figure out why they're thinking that way, and then maybe advise them and educate and enlighten them a little bit on a better way. So it doesn't have to be a fight, it could be a collaboration.
That's excellent. That's my goal, is to try to empower you to do that with the information that we give you without you going through several variations of what came out 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. That helps you with that. But let me encourage you also, so this is twofold. Bring in the proponent, the owner. So suicide, that would be SG. But the problem sometimes is that course owner thinks that training should be 10 hours. They think that training should be a plethora of this and a place. You gotta bring them down too. So that's the issue sometimes when you bring that subject matter into your meeting. So if he wants more suicide training, my suggestion is you offline, meet with the SG person, make sure you guys are aligned, and then go to your commander and say, sir, here's options, here's how people lead from a training standpoint, from a component standpoint. Yes, ma'am. Chief, you had your hand up? You wanna stop me? Say it again. Any more questions?
I have a question.
You just tell me when to stop, man. Yeah, I'm sorry, sir.
Sergeant Ross from AFLC. You mentioned the common military training for DODI. I wanted to know, how is DHA being involved with the transition of the MTFs out there? The reason I ask is that part of my job at AFO is that I've been tasked twice already to provide DHA a list of what ancillary training items Air Force does, and they kind of, I understand we're somewhere full of under the SG. So when you mentioned it and I seen that the list of the people that attend to those meetings, I was kind of confused why DHA.
Okay. I'm not sure why DHA, and I'm not totally clear on that whole hierarchy with DHA, but I don't know why they're asking you for ancillary training. They should be asking us at the Air Force level, because they're DOD level. They shouldn't be reaching down to the unit asking you for things like that. Reason being, we're the policy for the Air Force. So forward that to me, let me know. Now, DHA, we work with DHA along with the other services in reference to teachable C training that's being built now. And that's huge. And so you said the MTFs, or did you say BMT? I'm sorry.
No, what it is for the MTFs, what they were trying to do is they're trying to create policy for DHA on how MTFs, or what common training that all the services that fall under DHA, military medical, what they need to do. They're trying to get a clear picture of what Army does, what Air Force does, what Navy does, and also what is common.
Okay, so send me that, because there is, Ms. Dory Hatch that works at the DOD level and runs that common military training working group, and they can actually go from her, and she can push that down. That's higher than both private and girls. They shouldn't be asking you. But send that, and we will redirect that leadership that's asking a question in hopes to get them a better answer, Air Force enterprise-wide answer, and not just what you all do, but a baseline. Does that work, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Any more questions?
Hi, ma'am. Master Sergeant Hardesty from National Reconnaissance Office. When it comes to DTS training, I know in my unit, we are struggling to track the training because we're not able, that I know of, to pull reports out of DTS. And we've got a lot of personnel, so we are literally having to ask each member to send us their certificate and track it on an Excel document. And when you have 800 plus people, that's a challenge. Is there any way, and I know it's funding and, manning issues and things like that, but is there any way for us to be able to get reports as training managers so that we can eliminate the man hours we are spending trying to track that training?
Excellent question. Let me tell you why. In 2016, when these changes came down, DST, the SAF-FM people who own them, were supposed to get it transferred from, I can't remember what learning management system was on, over to ALS or Bill 1. As you just said, it became a money issue, nothing was done. I go back each year and I say, do we still need this? Because you have no reporting tool. That's another thing I look for. What's the higher level reporting authority? Oh, there's no reporting of this? Probably don't need it then. All right, so send me that. I'm gonna go to SAF-FM and I'm gonna say, how do we do this? Because our UTM should not be out there trying to track 800 certificates of who finished what, and you have no desire or need for it on your side of the house. So I would also advise you go to your finance people, if they're not gonna know, but go to your finance people and say, is there a tracking requirement for this? Is there a report for this? Because come to find out when we did CTIP, there was no annual requirement of who took CTIP. The requirement was, do we offer CTIP? You know how we used to always go in, track CTIP, who did CTIP? No, it was it offered? So sometimes we need to work with our opponents as to what the need of this training, what the high level training is. Send me that, so that I can manage it to be functional, and, I'll revisit that with staff, that you shouldn't have to do that.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just kind of thought about it while you were talking. Is there a way for the new Air Force learning ecosystem? I don't know if this is one of them that is on the forefront to maybe talk to DTS. Is that a
I can tell you
possibility? No. Okay. I know there were some that were.
It could be, we could bring it up. I would think staff and has brought it up. But you gotta remember, there are a ton of training coming at the AFLC, right? And they're prioritizing that, but I definitely will ask that question. Our goal, our leadership goal is to have you not, okay. So AFLC will make it so even if it's on, track, whatever, you don't have to go to tracks. Like you can click a button and it takes you to tracks. So the biggest thing was why do you have to go to these different entities to take the training, which is a big reason why they wanted everything done face to face and downloadable. But I will ask that question and see where they are. I'll send you an email. Awesome question.
Mayor, please back out 630 NEG. First off, I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. Just a couple clarifying things that I have. For this slide deck, can we get the who and the where is the training located? Is that possible when you send that out or when we get the message?
You mean what system?
Correct.
Yeah, I can do that.
And that
I
who,
think the goal was to align it with face to face, but I can, even if it's face to face, I can put where you do it, where you can find it. Like you want me to put for these ADLS,
correct.
you Sarah where it is, absentee voting, he just sends it out. Yeah. Mhm.
And then of course the who do I have to civilians, military? Can we include that? We have
Okay,
to
see,
go.
that's not going on. sit on that. So, well, okay. Okay, I can work that. Send it, so, because I don't have anybody taking notes, so send it to your MASCOM functional, and then I'll rearrange it. So that's good input. That's what I need. I'm not gonna, all of that's not gonna be on there, but I can put other things in the SharePoint that will lead you to that information.
Second thing,
Mhm.
is this going to be incorporated into TFTR so we can get the reports from there when they members complete the training and get pulled in? Is that a possibility?
Say that question again?
So instead of having to go to ADLS, generate these reports for what ancillary is required, will TFTR have the capability to pull these reports so that?
Yes.
Final question.
Yes.
For expeditionary readiness training, do we as UTMs have to provide statistics to our commanders in regards to ERT?
If they ask for it.
So that's where we would coordinate with the UTMs. Do we,
You said that was your last question.
I need clarification.
I do. Last means last. Okay.
All right. When it comes to SABC, scheduling, all that kind of stuff, and because it's based in AF Online, rotations, who's the appropriate authority?
That was brought up yesterday during that last 45-minute thing of mine. I have to do some research, and I spoke to, where are you? Stand up, you know who you are. You gave me 10403, the AFI. I told, there you are. She and I will get together. We will talk to those individuals in the expeditionary. I can't make that decision here today, but we're gonna determine who does what and figure out the roles and responsibilities, and that will come out at a later date.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Sergeant Day, 5th Comm Squadron out of Minot, and I only have one question. Bill, so we have the SABC AFI, which states that BMT does not recognize SABC for first-term airmen. So I understand that in 2020, we're going to have the tactical combat casualty care replace it. Is it possible you can go back to the course developers and see if there's a way that they can make that an ascension course for our first-term airmen, so when they come to our unit, we don't have to teach it to them again?
Okay, so SABC is only being taught in the sessions now. We're not going to change that. But what is happening in the SG community is she's coming up with what we, PSDGs, things like that, that says you will continue SAB training on the expeditionary side of the house as you always have. That's an interim guidance. So we're not going to do anything with that. TCCC policy is being set as we speak. It's one of the working groups we sit on. It will be done through a session. Little mini brief on TCCC in the end of April at BMT in San Antonio. We're doing a test pilot curriculum with those airmen, along with the other services who are doing a test pilot of the curriculum that has been built at the same time. And we also are doing a test pilot for the Air Force at Joint Base Elmendorf, which I'm excited about, because I get to go and I've been there last. So, do not get it wrong. The Howard does not assess any teacher procedure. I am not that POC. My job is to ensure that training as Air Force leadership defines it, is being respected and executed in that way. So, TCCC, the intent is to be taught through a session. Then every airman gets it also throughout the next couple of years. 2020, might take us 2022, 23, 24, right? You will hear a lot of people say, we gotta be done by 2020. No, there needs to be a plan to implement it by 2020, and then we move forward. I can tell you myself and some other services are looking at changing that policy. Because other than that, other than you all having, everyone has to train on it, it needs to be a refresher course every 3 years. That's a lot. Money-wise, that's a lot. So we're going back and we're changing that. So I can't tell you exactly what the policy is going to be on Teachable C right now. But what I can tell you, SABC is business as usual. And SG is coming up with interim guidance. How many of y'all know A1, the A1 community was responsible for the SABC AFI? I was like, how? When they told me that, I can't get any guidance on it, why, but I can tell you Teachable C won't be done by A1. So SG is taking that over. So good question though. I'm sorry I can't answer it right now. By the new fiscal year, we should have our policy curriculum through DHA and the services moving forward. So no one panic. Don't let anybody tell you it's a curriculum. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, this is what we're doing, because it's not true. We don't have it yet. We have a way forward. Any other questions? Or you guys can tell me I gotta get down. Come on, help me out, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Howard.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.